In the early hours of September 22, 2012, a solitary security camera bolted above a bridal shop on Melbourne's bustling Sydney Road captures a fleeting, chilling interaction. The grainy black and white lens frames a young woman illuminated by the stark neon glow of the storefront, walking alone toward her home through the crisp spring night. Without warning, a broad-shouldered man wearing a distinctive blue hoodie steps into the frame, completely blocking her path and turning to speak to her. She subtly leans away, attempting to disengage from the unwanted approach, her body language radiating extreme discomfort. A second later, the two figures move beyond the camera's narrow field of view, swallowed by the shadows of the pavement. This brief, silent recording marks the final verified sighting of 29-year-old Jill Meagher, an event that will soon unearth a devastating systemic failure and shatter a nation. Originally from Drogheda, a town on the eastern coast of Ireland, 29-year-old Jill Meagher possessed a sharp intellect and an effortless charm. She had recently built a flourishing life in Australia, seeking new opportunities far from her homeland. Jill relocated to Melbourne with her husband, Tom Meagher. Drawn by the vibrant cultural promise of Victoria, the couple shared a deep bond, navigating the challenges of expatriate life with mutual support and ambition. Jill secured a highly respected position in administration and programming at the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, a role that perfectly suited her dynamic personality. Her colleagues described her as exceptionally warm, deeply engaged in her daily responsibilities, and equipped with a quick, endearing wit that elevated the office environment. She thrived in the fast-paced broadcasting world, earning the respect and friendship of everyone she encountered. Beyond her professional achievements, Jill embraced the local lifestyle, exploring the diverse neighborhoods and immersing herself in the creative energy of the city. She maintained a close relationship with her family back in Ireland and her brother in Perth, bridging the massive geographical distance through constant communication. Her daily routine involved taking the tram to the studio, grabbing coffee at corner cafes, and returning home to share stories with Tom. She was a woman in the prime of her life, anchoring her future in a city that felt like a permanent home. The Meaghers settled in a modern apartment complex on Lux Way, nestled deep within the inner northern suburb of Brunswick. Brunswick stood as a highly diverse, densely populated enclave famous for its historic terraces, bustling cafes, and deep-rooted community spirit. The main artery of the suburb, Sydney Road, stretched for miles as a vibrant commercial corridor lined with bakeries, dive bars, and bridal papouseks. During the day, the street buzzed with heavy traffic and footfall, while at night, it transformed into a lively hub illuminated by amber sodium streetlights and neon signs. It was an area where young professionals and artists felt completely secure, surrounded by constant activity and watchful neighbors. On the evening of Friday, September 21, 2012, Jill wrapped up a demanding work week at the studio. She decided to join a group of her broadcasting colleagues for celebratory end-of-week drinks. The group gathered at Bar Etiquette, a popular dimly lit venue situated directly on Sydney Road, just a short walk from her apartment. The atmosphere inside the venue hummed with loud conversation, clinking glasses, and the relaxed energy of a Friday night. Jill spent hours enjoying the company of her friends, engaged in deep discussions and sharing her signature humor. The night progressed without a single hint of impending danger, wrapped in the comforting routine of an ordinary weekend. As midnight approached, the crowd at Bar Etiquette began to thin out, though the lively energy of Sydney Road remained steady. Tom Meagher chose to stay home that evening, relaxing in their Lux Way apartment and waiting for his wife to return. He exchanged several casual text messages with Jill throughout the night, ensuring she was enjoying herself and checking on her plans. The couple shared a profound sense of trust, and walking home from the local venues was a standard practice for residents of Brunswick. The geographical layout of the neighborhood meant that Jill only faced a brief straight-line walk of approximately 1 kilometer down a well-lit major thoroughfare. The route passed dozens of open businesses, late-night food vendors, and residential cross streets. Nothing about the evening deviated from the expected norms of their Australian life. Jill remained at the bar past 1 in the morning, soaking in the final moments of camaraderie with her remaining colleagues. She wore a light jacket over her dress, prepared for the typical drop-in temperature that accompanied Melbourne spring nights. The heavy wooden door of the bar stood between the warmth of her social circle and the cool night air of the pavement. At approximately 1:30 in the morning, she bid her friends farewell, stepped out onto the concrete of Sydney Road, and began her short journey north. The ambient noise of passing taxis and distant conversations provide a familiar soundtrack as Jill navigated the pedestrian pathway of Sydney Road. At exactly 1:32 in the morning, she retrieved her mobile phone and dialed the number of her brother, who lived across the country in Perth. The time difference meant he was still awake, and the two engaged in a brief, seemingly normal conversation as she walked. During this call, the distinct sound of a heavy male voice echoed in the background, speaking directly to Jill. Her brother heard her respond to the unknown man, her tone shifting as she navigated the sudden interaction. Moments later, the telephone connection abruptly terminated, plunging the line into total silence. Back in the apartment on Lux Way, Tom Mager glanced at the clock, noting the late hour and expecting the familiar heavy metallic click of the front door lock. When another hour passed with no sign of his wife, Tom sent a series of text messages, assuming she might have stayed longer at the venue. He then attempted to call her directly, but the phone rang out to voicemail, a highly uncharacteristic behavior for the communicative young woman. The glow of the city lights outside their window offered no answers, only illuminating the empty streets of Brunswick. A creeping sense of dread began to replace his initial calm as the hours stretched into the early morning. By daybreak on Saturday, September 22, the stark sunlight exposed the terrifying reality that Jill had never made it home. Tom Mager's concern escalated into absolute panic as he contacted her colleagues, discovering that she had left the bar hours ago. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he immediately traveled to the local station and officially reported his wife missing to the Victoria Police. Law enforcement officers quickly registered the severe anomalies in her disappearance, bypassing the standard waiting periods often applied to missing adults. Jill lacked any history of vanishing, possessed no underlying mental health crises, and maintained a stable, deeply loving marriage. A prominent missing persons investigation launched immediately, mobilizing vast resources across the northern suburbs of Melbourne. Detectives descended upon the Lux Way apartment, documenting her personal items and confirming that her bank accounts showed zero activity since the previous night. Simultaneously, a massive social media campaign erupted online, spearheaded by her broadcasting colleagues and desperate family members. Thousands of local residents shared photographs of her smiling face, transforming the digital landscape into a massive search grid. Physical flyers materialized on telegraph poles, shop windows, and bus shelters stretching the entire length of Sydney Road. The community rallied with unprecedented speed, desperate to locate the vibrant young professional who had vanished without a trace. The physical geography of the investigation shifted sharply toward a narrow, poorly lit alleyway branching off Hope Street, a minor road intersecting the main commercial strip. On the morning of her disappearance, a local resident walking down this desolate corridor spotted an abandoned leather handbag resting against the crumbling brickwork of a building. Believing it to be the discarded property of a careless late-night reveler, the resident picked up the item and carried it home. For 2 agonizing days, the critical piece of evidence sat completely disconnected from the massive police search occurring just streets away. On Monday, After seeing the relentless news broadcasts and recognizing the missing woman's description, the resident panicked, fearing implication in a major police investigation. The individual carried the handbag back to the exact same spot in the Hope Street alleyway and anonymously notified authorities. Uniformed officers quickly secured the perimeter, stringing yellow crime scene tape across the cracked pavement and sealing off the passage. Inside the bag, investigators found Jill's identification bank cards and personal effects perfectly intact, entirely ruling out a simple robbery. The preservation of these valuables instantly escalated the threat level of the case, shifting the focus from a voluntary disappearance to a high-stakes criminal abduction. This grim discovery served as the definitive point of no return, confirming the family's worst fears that a predator had intercepted Jill in the dark. By Monday, September 24, the investigation transitioned into a massive digital search operation along the commercial spine of Brunswick. The vast physical geography of Sydney Road presented a daunting logistical hurdle for the members of the Victoria Police. The street stretched for over 2 kilometers from the bar to the apartment complex of the victim, flanked by hundreds of independent shops, late-night eateries, and convenience stores. Detectives divided the thoroughfare into distinct grid sectors, assigning teams to canvass specific blocks. Officers went door to door to request access to private security systems from every single business owner. Investigators seized hard drives, digital video recorders, and physical tape cassettes from dozens of separate businesses, transporting these devices back to the central incident room. Forensic technicians confronted a severe technical challenge. Few of the private security cameras displayed the correct internal clock time, with some systems running hours behind or ahead of the actual time. To establish a flawless chronological path, investigators needed to calibrate the timestamp of every single video feed by hand. Officers walked the exact route themselves, holding a synchronized police radio in front of each camera lens to capture a verifiable reference point. Technicians then calculated the minute and second offset for every device, programming these corrections into the central database. This method allowed the task force to create a unified digital timeline of the entire street. This painstaking forensic procedure consumed critical hours as the search entered its third day. Inside the command center, a dedicated team of analysts stared at glowing monitors, dissecting terabytes of disjointed video data frame by frame. The footage revealed a busy street filled with late-night crowds, passing taxicabs and delivery vehicles. Every pedestrian captured on the screens required careful scrutiny and identification. Investigators faced an initial dead end when a caller reported seeing a woman matching the description of the victim walking near a railway station in a neighboring suburb. Detectives dispatched patrol units to secure the station and retrieve government transit footage from the platforms. Analysts reviewed the transit recordings, comparing the clothing and physical features of the woman on the platform to the missing person file. Hours of valuable time evaporated before analysts proved the woman on the train platform was an unrelated civilian. Returning their focus to Sydney Road, police began the arduous task of eliminating innocent bystanders captured near the crime scene. A man wearing a distinctive red jacket appeared on multiple cameras walking just meters behind the last known location of the victim. Investigators isolated his image, printed physical copies of his face, and launched a public appeal to identify him as a person of interest. The intense media scrutiny prompted the man in the red jacket to present himself at the local station the following morning of his own accord. Detectives subjected him to a thorough interview and verified his alibi. Officers cleared him of any involvement, returning the investigation to a state of absolute zero. The critical breakthrough materialized on Tuesday, September 25, hidden within a short video clip retrieved from a bridal shop named Duchess Boutique. The commercial storefront sat an estimated 600 meters north of the bar where the victim had spent her evening. Analysts loaded the specific file into their viewing software and adjusted the contrast to cut through the glare of the streetlights. At 1:38 in the morning, the bridal shop camera captured a chilling, undeniable interaction. The calibrated footage showed the victim walking alone into the bright ambient light of the display window. A broad-shouldered man wearing a distinctive blue hooded sweater stepped out of the shadows of an adjacent doorway. He moved with intention, placing his body in a position that blocked her forward progress along the pavement. The camera recorded the man speaking to her, matching the exact time frame of the interrupted telephone call to her brother. Recognizing the immense value of this evidence, the Victoria Police made a strategic decision to release the video to the national media. News networks broadcast the grainy black and white images across every television screen in the country, framing the blue hoodie as the primary target. The public response generated an overwhelming wave of phone calls to the local Crime Stoppers hotline. Following the broadcast, multiple informants pointed investigators toward a local resident with a known history of predatory behavior. Detectives entered the name of the suspect into the law enforcement database, setting off a cascade of severe red flags across the system. The name blinking on the investigator monitors was Adrian Ernest Bailey, seeking concrete evidence to link him to the disappearance. Detectives filed urgent emergency warrants for his cellular phone records. The service provider transmitted files containing hundreds of individual data points logged by the cellular network. Telecommunications analysts utilized specialized mapping software to plot the historical cell tower data, from the device belonging to Bailey against the known movements of the phone belonging to the victim. A cellular device conducts a continuous search for the strongest signal, registering a digital handshake with nearby towers in regular intervals. By triangulating these handshakes, forensic experts created a precise geographical map of the electronic footprint left by both individuals. The digital overlap revealed a terrifying synchronicity in the early hours of September 22. Both devices registered on the exact same Sydney Road cell tower at 19:38 in the morning. The data footprint then showed both phones moving in tandem down Hope Street and into the narrow alleyway where the handbag was later discovered. The records tracked the phone belonging to Bailey leaving the Brunswick area hours later, traveling into the remote northwestern outskirts of the city. The telecommunications data provided an irrefutable geographical map of the crime. Detectives now possessed the required probable cause to transition from a missing person search to a targeted manhunt. Surveillance units received orders to locate the man in the blue hoodie and monitor his movements without raising his suspicion. As task force members prepared for the confrontation, they unearthed a catastrophic failure within the justice system. Adrian Bailey was not an unknown entity to the authorities, but a prolific convicted predator with a massive history of severe offenses. He had served multiple prison sentences for a string of predatory acts spanning a decade, utilizing a pattern of stalking victims in nightlife districts. Despite this extensive record of predatory behavior, Bailey maintained a facade of normalcy in his daily life. He held steady employment in the construction industry and lived in a standard suburban home, hiding his dark reality behind the mask of an ordinary citizen. On the night of the crime, Bailey was living without restriction in the community under the supervision of the Adult Parole Board. The systemic breakdown originated earlier that year, when Bailey engaged in a severe physical confrontation with a man outside a venue in the city of Geelong. This incident represented a direct and egregious breach of his strict parole conditions. Under standard legal protocols, the state possessed the mandate to order the revocation of his freedom and return him to a prison cell. Instead, a massive communication failure between the regional magistrates and the parole board created a deadly administrative loophole. The regional magistrate court utilized an isolated computer network that did not interface with the database used by the Adult Parole Board. Officials failed to lodge the correct paperwork linking the new confrontation charge to his active parole file. Bureaucratic incompetence and a rigid reliance on paper-based communication allowed a known predator to bypass the system and wander the streets of Brunswick. While detectives prepared for the arrest, a separate team of forensic specialists executed a search warrant on the residence and vehicle belonging to the suspect. Crime scene technicians established a sterile perimeter around a silver sedan parked outside his property. Investigators opened the doors of the vehicle, initiating a methodical search for trace evidence that could connect the car to the missing woman. Technicians utilized specialized chemical reagents and ultraviolet light sources to scan the upholstery for hidden biological markers. The interior of the sedan reeked of strong chemical cleaning agents, an overwhelming odor indicating a recent and thorough scrub of the passenger cabin. Despite the calculated efforts to sanitize the environment, experts found microscopic anomalies in the fabric weave of the passenger seat. Forensics teams removed sections of the fabric seating, placing them in breathable evidence bags for advanced laboratory analysis. Inside the residence, officers conducted a room-by-room sweep, cataloging potential items of interest. They confiscated multiple items of clothing matching the distinct outfit captured on the bridal shop camera. A bright blue hooded sweater, identical to the one worn by the predator in the video, sat discarded among a pile of laundry in the bedroom. Evidence custodians bagged and tagged these critical physical items, securing an unbreakable chain of custody. Detectives documented the layout of the home, noting the chilling banality of the environment maintained by the suspect. This concurrent physical search guaranteed that the predator would face an insurmountable mountain of material proof during questioning. Armed with undeniable digital evidence and a complete profile of the predator, the Victoria Police executed their final move on Thursday, September 27. Plainclothes detectives located Bailey at an address in the neighboring suburb of Coburg, a residential area just a few kilometers north of the crime scene. Multiple unmarked police vehicles established a tight perimeter around the suburban property, blocking all potential escape routes into the surrounding neighborhood. Officers approached the residence, confronted the suspect on the pavement, and placed him in the back of a secure law enforcement vehicle. Detectives transported Bailey to the Central Police Command, isolating him inside a stark windowless interrogation room. The room contained nothing but a metal table, 2 chairs, and a recording device mounted on the wall. During the initial hours of questioning, the suspect maintained a facade of complete ignorance, delivering confident, practiced denials to the investigators. He claimed he spent the entire night of the disappearance at a different location and possessed no knowledge of the missing woman. Investigators refused to accept his deception, shifting their strategy to confront him with hard evidence. They placed the clear printed photographs from the bridal shop camera on the center of the metal table, demanding an explanation for the man in the blue hoodie. Detectives then revealed the irrefutable telecommunications data, demonstrating how the digital footprint mapped his precise movements alongside the victim. The overwhelming weight of the verified forensic evidence began to dismantle his arrogant posture, stripping away his false confidence. The suspect stared at the undeniable proof of his actions, realizing his web of lies could not withstand the meticulous and unrelenting police work. Inside the windowless interrogation room at the Central Command Center, the digital clock on the wall crossed midnight, pushing the investigation into the early hours of Friday, September 28. The 2 lead detectives maintained a relentless, calculated rhythm of questioning, refusing to give the suspect a moment of psychological rest. They placed the printed photographs from the bridal shop camera in the center of the metal table, forcing Adrian Bailey to confront the image of the man in the blue hooded sweater. Beside the photographs, investigators laid out a massive color-coded map generated by the telecommunications analysts. The document displayed the precise digital handshakes from the cellular towers, tracking his electronic footprint in perfect synchronization with the movements of the victim. The suspect stared at the undeniable geographical proof connecting him to the narrow alleyway off Hope Street. His arrogant posture began to fracture under the crushing weight of the verified forensic data. The practiced denials that marked the first hours of the interview dissolved into long, heavy silences. Recognizing the absolute collapse of his deception, Bailey finally abandoned his facade. Speaking into the active recording device, he delivered a chilling confession that confirmed the worst fears of the investigative team and shattered any remaining hope for a rescue operation. The suspect detailed the horrific sequence of events that unfolded in the darkness of the Brunswick alleyway. He admitted to intercepting Jill Mager on the pavement, using his massive physical advantage to block her path along the commercial corridor. When she attempted to bypass his unwanted approach, he forcefully dragged her off the well-lit path of Sydney Road and into the shadows of the desolate side street. The physical geography of the attack placed the victim mere meters away from the safety of the main thoroughfare, hidden entirely by the crumbling brick walls of the adjacent buildings. In that isolated space, the predator subjected the young woman to a severe assault, stripping away her future in a calculated act of ultimate violence. The assault culminated in a brutal asphyxiation, ceasing her breath and ensuring her permanent silence. Recognizing the high probability of discovery in the densely populated neighborhood, he initiated a rapid concealment plan. He left her belongings discarded against the alleyway wall, returned to his vehicle, and loaded the victim into the passenger cabin. The timeline provided by his confession matched the exact departure timestamps logged by the cellular tower network. The investigators listened to the cold, detached recitation of the facts, documenting the final moments of a vibrant life stolen by a man who never should have walked those streets. Acting on the coordinates provided during the confession, a massive convoy of law enforcement vehicles departed the Central Command Center in the pre-dawn hours of Friday morning. The physical geography of the journey shifted drastically from the dense urban grid of Melbourne to the sparse, rural outskirts of the state. The specialized search teams traveled 50 kilometers northwest along the Calder Freeway, leaving the amber glow of the city lights behind. The destination was a desolate patch of agricultural land located deep within the rural district of Gisborne South. The heavy police utility vehicles exited the paved highway, navigating a series of winding, unsealed dirt tracks bordered by thick scrubland and towering eucalyptus trees. The absolute isolation of the area provided a stark contrast to the bustling environment where the attack originated. Arriving at the designated coordinates, the convoy formed a tight perimeter around a specific section of disturbed earth located just off the edge of the primitive roadway. Uniformed officers unspooled yellow crime scene tape, stringing it between the trunks of the trees to secure the massive outdoor environment. Forensic technicians unloaded portable generators from the rear of their transport vehicles, setting up high-powered halogen lamps to illuminate the dark terrain. Under the blinding glare of the artificial lights, the specialized forensic recovery team began the meticulous process of excavation. A forensic anthropologist directed the operation, instructing the technicians to remove the heavy topsoil using small hand tools to preserve potential trace evidence. The soil composition revealed signs of recent disruption, confirming the narrative provided by the suspect in the interrogation room. Inches below the surface, investigators made the grim, devastating discovery of human remains resting in a shallow, hastily constructed grave. Crime scene photographers documented every angle of the site, capturing the tragic reality of the final resting place. The medical examiner arrived at the remote location to take official custody of the remains, initiating the strict chain of evidence required for the upcoming legal proceedings. The confirmation of the death sent a shock wave of profound grief and absolute fury through the ranks of the Victoria Police and the entire nation. The public soon learned the terrifying truth that the predator responsible for this devastation was a repeat offender living freely in the community on active paroles. The realization that a known threat committed this final, unforgivable act due to a massive administrative failure transformed a localized tragedy into a national demand for immediate systemic reckoning. On Sunday, September 30, the collective grief of the nation materialized into an unprecedented display of public solidarity and outrage on the streets of Brunswick. The local council suspended all vehicular traffic along Sydney Road, transforming the bustling commercial corridor into a massive pedestrian avenue. An estimated 30,000 citizens gathered in the morning light, forming a vast sea of people stretching for over a kilometer down the exact route the victim took on her final night. The crowd marched in profound silence, carrying banners demanding justice and placing thousands of floral tributes outside the bridal boutique where the last digital images were recorded. The massive demonstration represented a definitive shift in the public consciousness, moving beyond simple mourning into a fierce demand for institutional accountability. Citizens directed their immense frustration squarely at the Adult Parole Board and the fragmented justice system that prioritized administrative convenience over community safety. The sheer scale of the gathering forced the highest levels of the state government to acknowledge the catastrophic failure that allowed a violent predator to roam the streets. The march stood as a powerful testament to the vibrant young professional from Ireland, ensuring her name became synonymous with the urgent need for protective legal reform. The pursuit of moral justice transitioned from the streets to the austere environment of the Supreme Court of Victoria in June 2013. Facing an insurmountable mountain of verified forensic evidence, telecommunications data, and his own recorded confession, Adrian Bailey abandoned any attempt at a defense and formally pleaded guilty to the charges. The courtroom gallery sat packed with grieving family members, dedicated investigators, and national journalists waiting for the final legal determination. The presiding judge delivered a scathing summary of the crimes, condemning the predator for his absolute disregard for human life and his calculated exploitation of the judicial loopholes. The court initially sentenced the offender to life in prison, setting a strict non-parole period of 35 years. However, the legal reckoning did not end with the initial verdict. The massive publicity surrounding the case prompted previous victims to come forward, leading to subsequent convictions in 2015 for a series of prior, unpunished assaults. Following a complex legal appeal process that concluded in 2016, the judicial system consolidated his sentences. The appellate court established a finalized non-parole period of 40 years, guaranteeing the predator would remain locked in a concrete cell until at least the year 2055, when he would reach the age of 83. The stringent mathematical reality of the sentence provided a definitive permanent removal of his freedom. The profound administrative failures exposed during the investigation triggered a massive political response from the Victorian government. The Premier of the state officially commissioned the Collin Review, an independent, exhaustive inquiry into the operational procedures of the Adult Parole Board. The resulting legal document detailed exactly how the system failed step by step. The review exposed a fragmented, paper-based reporting network where regional magistrate courts utilized isolated databases that did not communicate with the Central Parole Authority. When the offender committed an assault in the city of Geelong earlier that year, the local court recorded the conviction on their internal server, but the critical paperwork never reached the desks of the parole board members. To eradicate this deadly loophole, the government enacted sweeping legislative changes that fundamentally altered Australian law. The state mandated the implementation of a unified, real-time electronic data sharing system across all branches of the justice network. Furthermore, the Parliament introduced a rigid two-strikes policy, stripping discretionary power from the board and ensuring that any violent offender who breached their conditions faced immediate, mandatory return to a high-security prison facility. These sweeping legal mandates closed the administrative gaps forever, prioritizing the safety of the public over the rehabilitation of repeat predators. In the wake of the tragedy, Tom Maerger channeled his immense personal devastation into a powerful campaign for societal change. He transitioned into a prominent public advocate, penning highly influential essays that challenged the deeply ingrained cultural norms surrounding men's violence toward women. His articulate, forceful writings dismantled the toxic narratives that placed the burden of safety on potential victims, redirecting the national focus toward the accountability of the perpetrators. Through his relentless advocacy work, Tom ensured that the memory of his wife extended far beyond the grim details of the investigation. Jill Maerger remained the true focus of the narrative, a brilliant, ambitious, and deeply loved woman whose life ended in an unimaginable injustice. Her final walk down Sydney Road catalyzed a permanent transformation in the Australian legal landscape, forcing a broken system to repair its catastrophic flaws. The sweeping parole reforms and the heightened public vigilance stand today as a lasting vital legacy, offering a measure of protection to